Thank you. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I'm delighted to be here with you with some very important special guests who do great work across the borough of Queens and for our state. And I'll first start by welcoming Beverly Bobb, the Senior Director of Capital Access at the Empire State Development Corporation, and Joseph Tazwell, the Regional Director of the Empire State Development Corporation, who is delighted to partner with our office to do this session. Joe knows how important it is to help our Queens businesses and nonprofits build capacity. We're also joined by my good friend, Tom Gretsch, the President of the Queens Chamber of Commerce, who is a reliable partner of this office. He helps us in his role as a member of the Regional Economic Development Corporation and in his role as President of the Queens Chamber of Commerce. And of course, to my hometown hero, Hope Knight, the President and CEO of Greater Jamaica Development Corporation, another of our Queens REDC members and community partners. And Jamaica is booming. A lot of great things happening in downtown Jamaica. And I'm excited about what we're gonna achieve together as we move into the future. We also are joined by Liz Luskin, who is the President of the Long Island City Partnership. And I don't have to tell you about all the phenomenal things going on in LIC, and I'll fight to make sure we keep JetBlue, our hometown airline, grounded in Queens and not moving to Florida. But outside of just JetBlue, all of the synergy and opportunity that exists in LIC is really a unique opportunity as we move forward, thinking about the life sciences and other industries that have endless possibilities for our borough. So I want to thank you for being here as well, and Liz, and I want to thank Liz and Hope for providing us with some insight into how you have put together successful grant applications through the consolidating funding application process. So thank you to all three of you. I thank the economic development staff here at Borough Hall, Sharon Anderson, and of course, our phenomenal Deputy Borough President, Rhonda Bender, and John Perricone for their help on today's webinar. I also like to thank the communications team and technique teams for their support of this program as well. I put this information session together today for one reason, that is to help ensure Queens has better applications for submission to the state this year for economic development funding. Due to COVID-19, 2020 was a lost year with the CFE process on hold. In 2019, Queens was once again in fourth place, just in front of Staten Island with 8 applications and $3.2 million in funding, a little bit over that. Lagging far behind Brooklyn, which had 29 applications at $7,653,374,000. In Manhattan, with 53 applications at about almost 1.3 million in funding. Incidentally, the Bronx had 6 projects at about 5.4 million in funding. Come on, Queens, we can't play second fiddle to anyone. So this is the reason we're doing this today. These are challenging times. Over the past year, many of our small businesses and restaurants closed. Prior to the pandemic, Queens had close to 55,000 registered small businesses, over 100 large businesses with over 250 employees, and approximately 90 nonprofit organizations representing all sectors of the community. Queens also had the diversity of people, 13 business improvement districts, which all demonstrate that Queens has the infrastructure to do better. Queens has to do better by preparing our applicants and giving them the tools they need for better applications. And all of us elected officials and community leaders must serve as advocates for more applications that are streamlined, cohesive, and applications that are aligned with our priorities so that Queens can do better. We have projects in Queens that we are proud of, like Gotham Green Urban Hydroponic Farm in Jamaica and Greenpoint Manufacturing and Design Center in Ozone Park. And we want to see a lot more projects once again in Queens. Just know that I am committed to doing everything I can to identify the groups and to help our groups meet funding eligibility. Now I'm delighted to welcome Tom Gretsch, the President of the Queens Chamber of Commerce, who will provide an overview of the Regional Economic Development Council.
Folks, thanks very much for the invitation. And let me just say, if I may, to get started, you know, I can't speak for the other counties of the great city of New York, the other organizations, but I can tell our friends from ESD, and our participants that Queens is united as we've never been before. Between myself and Hope and Liz in Long Island City, we are an organized group, very proud to be part of this group, and I look forward to participating and getting some projects off the ground. Borough President Richards is correct. Fourth place is no place in the city of New York. And I'm very, very excited about this opportunity. I also want to pay respects to, in a very, very positive way, to Carol Consolado, who spent many, many years at Con Ed, who's now retired and left the mantle for folks like myself and Hope to pick up and get things done. So very, very honored and pleased to be here. And I thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Tom. And once again, I thank all of you for joining us today. And I hope that this means that we'll see more CFA applications over the next 20 days. And thank you for being here. So I now am turning this over to, I believe, Rhonda, and then we'll get this program going. So I want to thank each and every one of you once again for your partnership, and look forward to the work ahead. Please make sure you're working together to get these applications. And once again, Sharon Anderson is on the line as well. And she's our economic development coordinator. So please don't hesitate to reach out to our office if you have questions or you need assistance as well. So I'll turn it over to Rhonda to run through the rest of the program. And I want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Queensborough President. We'll move right along, and it is my honor and pleasure to introduce Joseph Tazwell, our partners at the New York City Empire State Development Corporation, New York State Empire Development Corporation. He's the New York City Regional Director. Thank you, Mr. Tazwell.
Thank you, Deputy Borough President, for that kind introduction. I'd also like to thank the Borough President for hosting this virtual consolidated funding application info session. And I'd also like to recognize our Queens Regional Council members, Tom Gresh, Hope Knight, of course, Sharon Anderson, who is our liaison with the Queensborough President's Office, and as well as Liz Luskin, who is the proud recipient of 3 REDC awards and will be sharing her experience a little later. Today, I'll be discussing round 11 of the Regional Economic Development Council initiative and $750 million in assistance that will be made available through the consolidated funding application. Let me note that the REDC funding is separate from the $800 million in assistance now available through the New York State COVID-19 Pandemic Small Business Recovery Grant Program. That program has been created to provide flexible grant assistance to currently viable small businesses, micro businesses, and for-profit independent arts and cultural organizations in New York State who have experienced economic hardship due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I won't be covering that in my presentation, but I have a colleague, Beverly Bob, who has graciously agreed to join the panel, and we'll be discussing that program a little later in the program. So perhaps we can now put the presentation up. Great. So Governor Cuomo created the Regional Economic Development Councils to transform the state's economic development process from the top-down approach of years past to a bottom-up approach where economic development decisions are made locally by the region's business, academic, and nonprofit leaders. The REDC process has built the framework for this process to economic growth, and the results have been tremendous. Since 2011, over $6.9 billion has been awarded or committed to statewide projects to support a total of 8,300 projects statewide, which will lead to the creation and retention of 240,000 jobs. New York City has been awarded $615 million for a total of 867 projects, which will retain and create over 51,000 jobs. Now in its 11th year, the expertise of the regional councils will be essential to the post-COVID-19 recovery. Next. Please, next slide. The consolidated funding application was introduced in 2011 as part of the governor's transformative plan to improve the state's economic development model. The CFA process marked a fundamental shift in the way economic development resources are allocated, ensuring less bureaucracy and greater efficiency to fulfill local needs and help businesses invest in sustainable growth. The CFA functions as a single application project sponsors must complete to access over $750 million in state resources, including grant money, tax credits, and other funding mechanisms from the dozens of existing programs. In the past, applicants seeking funding for economic development projects had to slowly navigate through multiple state agencies without any mechanism for coordination. Next. This slide gives you an overview of two timeline tracks, depending on the program an applicant is applying to. The CFA opened on May 10th for round 11. Most agency programs will have a due date of July 30th, 2021 by 4 p.m. sharp. Let me repeat that again. The deadline is July 30th, 2021 at 4 p.m. No late submissions will be accepted, so be sure to submit early. This is always a problem. Oftentimes people wait till the last day or a few minutes before the deadline to submit. So again, I urge you to begin your applications as soon as possible. You can return and work on these applications over time, but please begin now and apply as soon as you can. The award announcements for these programs will be made in late fall. In a new development for round 11, the application for ESD capital grant funds is now subject to an open enrollment program, which will remain open until the funds are exhausted. Projects will be reviewed on a quarterly basis or more frequently if needed, and awards will be made available to projects as they are approved. Next. More than $750 million will once again be available from over 30 programs across 9 state agencies. Again, this year, $150 million in ESD grant funds will be available on a rolling basis, meaning applicants will be able to apply throughout the year rather than have their applications due by a specific date. Additionally, applicants will be notified of their awards as they are approved rather than at the end of the round. As in past years, a share of the $150 million will be awarded to projects throughout the state, with up to $20 million being awarded to those projects within a single region. So just to be clear, only $20 million in projects will be available for New York City. As always, not every project is guaranteed funding. An emphasis will be placed on project readiness and alignment with the strategic plan. An additional $525 million in agency program funds will follow the normal timeline, and awards will be made in late fall of 2021. The next set of slides is a breakdown of the programs and the total funding amounts available for the round 11 programs. In the interest of time, I'll provide a quick overview, but on the Regional Council website, there are recorded webinars, PowerPoint presentations, and a resource guide that will cover all the programs in great detail. Next, please. So this is the ESD assistance that's available for round 11. The ESD capital grant funding, which are grants for capital-based economic development projects intended to create and retain jobs. ESD generally provides no more than 20% of total project costs. There's also a 10% cash equity requirement. Next is the Excelsior Jobs Program, which is a refundable tax credit for-profit firms in strategic industries such as software development, scientific research and development, financial services, agriculture, manufacturing, back office distribution, life sciences, music production, and entertainment companies. New this year are that we're adding green products and childcare services. Next, the Business Incubator and Innovation Hotspot program. This is a 5-year designation that ESD will make for business incubators, up to 10 designations statewide this year, and 5 hotspots. These incubators will receive working capital over the 5-year designation. Next, I'm sorry, hold on one second. The ESD Strategic Planning Studies program is available up to $100,000 for each to support strategic development plans for a city. Market New York is a grant program meant to strengthen tourism and attract visitors to New York by promoting designations, attractions, and special events. So under this slide, the New York Main Street provides resources to invest in projects that provide economic development and housing opportunities in downtown and mixed-use commercial districts. Also, under the Parks Office, there's grant funding available for acquisition, planning, development, and improvement of parks, historic properties, heritage areas located within the physical boundaries of the state. Lastly, the Recreational Trails Program will provide funding for recreational trails and trails-related facilities for non-motorized and motorized recreational trail uses. Next slide, please. There are a number of sustainability programs under the Department of Environmental Conservation. The Climate Smart Communities, the Water Quality Improvement Project program, a non-agricultural, non-point source water quality improvement, a green innovation grant program, and wastewater infrastructure. Next slide, please. The Department of State has a number of programs. Local Government Efficiency Grant Program provides funding for assistance to local governments to develop projects that reduce the cost of municipal operations and service delivery. Also, they have a grant program for to implement local waterfront revitalization and revitalize communities near waterfronts. Also, they operate a Brownfield Opportunity Area program. Grants are available on a competitive basis to develop either a Brownfield Opportunity Area nomination or pre-development activities to advance projects in Brownfield Opportunity Areas. Also, they have a program for Smart Growth Comprehensive Planning. I'll skip the canal ways because that's actually for upstate counties adjacent to the Erie Canal. Recharge, next please. Recharge New York is a statewide economic development power program designed to retain and create jobs through allocations of lower cost electricity to businesses and nonprofit corporations. NYSERDA also has several programs, a carbon neutral program, the Commercial and Industrial Carbon Challenge, and energy efficiency programs that provide both technical assistance and customized engineering analysis. Next. Lastly, up to $300 million of the 2019 statewide private activity bond allocation authority will be available under federal guidelines dedicated to facilitate lower tax bond financing for qualified projects and authorized by authorized government issuers. And that would be, you would have to work with the New York City Economic Development Corporation on this. Let me just mention that the Council of the Arts is not in the CFA this year. However, NISCA has $105 million available for live performances, expanded access to funding, organizational and individual artist recovery, and capital funding. Again, program-specific webinars are available for every funding program included in this process, and they are available on the REDC website. Additionally, a full resource guide with full guidelines for every program is available on the REDC website as well. Next. So this is a process that requires a little bit of homework before you begin, a little bit of reading. So again, I've mentioned the webinars, the PowerPoints, the resource guide, the guidebook. I would suggest looking at all of that. However, you should also look at the New York City Regional Economic Development Council annual report. That was just submitted for 2021 last week. And that goes into all of our strategies. What we've done is we've looked at the strategies that we've developed over the past 10 years and reevaluated how do we apply these strategies in a post-COVID economy. So I would suggest looking at that report, maybe also the 2019 report, so that you can begin to craft your application. The CFA asks a series of questions that relates to the REDC report. It's through that report and through the strategies outlined in that report that the REDC evaluates your projects. So it's wise to look at that before you begin. Next, please. So this is a list of criteria which the REDC has come up with for 2021 as it evaluates the CFAs. And let me just touch on a few of these quickly, if I may. First, the governor created the Reimagine New York Commission, which was chaired by Eric Schmidt of Schmidt Futures and the former CEO of Google. And specifically, the commission identified 3 objectives for improving economic opportunities in New York. That includes expanding pathways to good careers, serving as a magnet and accelerator for small business, and lifting up arts and cultural institutions. So that's something to look at, I think, if you may, and projects that kind of fall in line with that are ones that we're looking at. Workforce development, of course. The governor created the Workforce Development Initiative, which began with $175 million. More money was added in this budget. So, but if you have capital projects that could potentially involve workforce development, you should focus on training individuals for jobs that exist in the city, as well as skills training programs. We have an issue in New York of skills gap, so workforce development is very important. Job creation, of course, is the number one focus. That's the point of all this. So we're looking at projects that directly or indirectly create or retain jobs. Relief of conditions of economic distress, of course, are very important. Leveraging investment, that's a part of all of these programs. Of course, we can't fund each project at 100%. So we're looking to leverage the public sector dollars. Social and economic transformation, again, looking at industry clusters or economically distressed communities that might benefit from these programs. Feasibility, we're looking at shovel-ready projects. We need projects that are ready to go. We don't want to fund a project that will languish or sit idle. So feasibility is important, meaning that financing is in place, clear time frame, et cetera. Measurable impact. We're looking at projects that include projections of economic growth in terms of job creation, investment, business revenue generation, community benefits, etc. Innovation, that's a big focus here, particularly life science, telehealth, clean energy, those areas. Partnerships with higher education, also very important. Again, projects that are going to involve preparing our youth for future employment. Interregional cooperation. I think what we learned over the last year is out-migration is a real threat. And so we have to look interregionally. And so that's a big focus of our criteria as well. Finally, we're going to be looking at improving the accessibility and quality of childcare, improving or expanding opportunities in life sciences, addressing environmental justice, facilitating placemaking and downtown revitalization, workforce development, as I mentioned, and accelerating small business incubation, as well as increasing veterans participation. Next slide, please. So I'm going to quickly try to go through a few slides here to talk about the CFA, or Consolidated Funding Application, mechanically, and a little bit about the scoring. Next. Next, please. Thank you. So the regional councils are a critical component of the CFA review process. As I mentioned, it's through the regional council strategies that the council scores projects. Each CFA will be assigned to the regional council, which will determine the degree to which the application implements the regional strategic plan and assign a corresponding number of points. So these points can range from, or will range from 0 to 20 points. It's 0, 5, 10, 15, 20. And as you can see here, you can see how we're looking at these projects as it relates to those scores. The regional council score counts for 20% of an overall score. The other 80% is evaluated by the agency for technical review. Next. So this is the website you'll see when you go to the regional councils page, regionalcouncils.ny.gov. There's a lot of information on this page. This will link you to past projects, to all the regional council websites. You can see the regional council's annual plan this way. You can go to the webinars. You can go to the resource manual. So this is an important site to get all of the information you need prior to beginning the CFA. Next, please. So this is actually the CFA homepage. Again, there are a number of resources that are linked to it, but this is how you begin the process of applying. Next, please. So when you begin the process, you'll be given, when you register, you'll be given a token or password. It's important for you to print the page, this page with your token and password so that you can return, because it would probably be difficult for you to fill out an application in one sitting. So this token or password will allow you to come back and collect your documents. You will need to upload documents, financial statements, various things. So this is a nifty tool to allow you to apply. Basically, the system is designed so that it will take you through a series of steps. If you're new to the CFA, it'll take you through, guide you through with a series of threshold questions. Alternatively, you can, if you know the programs you're interested in, go directly to those programs and begin applying. Next. Again, this is this shows you a little bit of what you're going to have to go through as you apply. Just a note, you'll have to upload documents, as I mentioned, financial statements, various other, biographies, various other things. Mailing those documents is not an option. So you have to, that's why it really takes a little time to complete this application. Again, you won't have a finalized application until you upload all the required documents. Next, please. So that's it. Again, I want to mention the deadline of July 30th, 4 p.m., which is the deadline for the CFA. And again, I would like to stress the importance to submit early. I think I hit my 20 minutes. So thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you very much for that vital information, Joseph, and for sparking our imagination and all the incredible projects we can pursue here in Queens. And we're so excited now to hear from the president of the Long Island City Partnership, Ms. Liz Luskin, who is a 4-time recipient. Please shed some more knowledge on how we can score more of these funds for Queens. Thank you, Liz.
My pleasure. And thank you so much to the borough president and the deputy borough president and Shern for allowing us to be a co-host on this and for me to participate. I want to thank Joe and everybody at Empire State Development for their unfailing friendship and help and guidance. One thing that we don't always, we know it's a competition locally for funds, but it also is a competition regionally for funds, not just Queens versus Brooklyn, but New York versus upstate. And I know that Joe and everyone at ESD and on the REDC wants New York City to shine and to do really well and get as much money for the for New York City as possible. So I do have one quick slide. Thank you. So we've been incredibly fortunate to get 4 grants, 3 really through REDC, 1 through NISCA, but that year it was part of the CFA application process. And the borough president very kindly was talking about the evolution of Long Island City and all the things that are going on here. And this has really in recent years been a partnership with ESD and the REDC, helping to facilitate and guide that growth through this process. I'll just say quickly what these 4 grants were about and how they fit together with the REDC, and then go into more generically how one can be successful using the tools that we applied. So in 2014, we saw that a lot of growth was coming to Long Island City and that there really hadn't been a good look at what was here, what were the things that were working, what were the things that weren't. Those who know Long Island City know, and I should say the Long Island City Partnership is the local development corporation for Long Island City. We've been around for 40 years. We have always been grounded in one-on-one business assistance, heavily in the industrial community, but also over the years have worked to really be an advocate for this incredibly mixed-use neighborhood and operate the Long Island City Business Improvement District as well as the business assistance for the IBZ. So we realized that Long Island City wasn't really well understood, and yet there was going to be a lot of investment happening, both public and private. Sorry, could you just keep up the slide for a minute? If I could get the slide back, that would be great. Thank you so much. So we needed to do a quick but deep dive and develop some comprehensive and strategic recommendations and information gathering that could help guide that. And we saw that there was an opportunity through the REDC, and we applied for that. And it was aligned at that point with the regional goals that had been outlined in the annual report and others, very important. That grant from the state not only allowed us to do the work, but to leverage lots of other money to do a very robust phase 1 report, which is on our website. That included a number of recommendations, again, for city and state and private to do, but also for work that we should do to help improve and strengthen the neighborhood, including some streetscape level capital improvements, and we were able to apply for a capital grant from ESD as a follow-on to the work that had been outlined in the report from the original grant. We also saw through that report that there was an opportunity potentially for life sciences to become a sector in Long Island City, but it hadn't happened, and we needed to understand why and what could facilitate that. And in the year we applied, fostering life sciences was also a regional priority as well as a state priority. So we were able to get another planning grant to produce that report, which fortunately was very positive, and we've already seen a lot of great things come out of that. And another recommendation of the report had been to improve the connectivity within the community and enliven the neighborhood as a place where great creative folks, both existing and incoming, would feel inspired and at home. And so we were able to apply to NISCA for some money to support a staff person to help us carry out a series of public art projects done with community partners. So all of these things came together, came out of the initial grant, and were all related to priorities that the state had. So we're really grateful for this funding, which has allowed us to leverage a lot of other funding. And I also want to note that while we've gotten grants in the thousands of dollars because these were the programs that were appropriate for us, businesses applying individually in Long Island City for major capital grants have also gotten much bigger awards. And we really encourage individual businesses or folks who are doing major capital projects to consider how best to apply for this. And I'm sure that there's a lot of information on what the REDC has provided to help guide you through that. But there's big bucks out there, folks, and let's bring them to Queens. So now we can get rid of this slide, but thank you. So, this is what we were applying for, but why were we successful? And I think that the key thing that you have to keep in mind is that there are tons of great projects out in the world, but this is a strategic investment program of the state. So you need to respond to the strategic criteria that have been articulated in both the statewide and the regional and the programmatic materials that have been put out. Because again, you could have a wonderful project, but it doesn't fit in these strategic priorities. So first of all, make sure that you are relating to those strategic priorities. And those are both overall goals that might be something like fostering life sciences, but they also might be specific things like job creation. So be aware of all of that. Do your homework. Joe said it. It is the most important thing. Read the big picture documents, and then as you figure out what program you're going to apply to, read those specific documents, watch those pre-recorded webinars. That will, once you start looking at the application, you will see how it all starts to come together. And you have to treat this. I remember when I was in law school, I took a course. I did really well in the course, and then the exam came, I didn't do so well. And I went to talk to the professor and I said, why? And he was going through and he showed me, he was looking for the phrases that he needed. I explained those phrases, but I didn't use them. And I think it's the same thing here. You're going to be scored on this. Don't be cute. Use the words that need to be that need to be there. Don't make it hard for anyone to find how you're meeting these goals. If they want jobs, use the word jobs. If they want university partnerships, show university partnerships. Make it easy for those things to be there. But again, always keeping in mind, am I showing how I am helping the Regional Economic Development Council meet the strategic goals, how my project will be effective in doing that as they've articulated that. Don't hesitate to state it clearly. Don't hesitate to restate it. Answer the question that you're being asked. You may have answered a similar question somewhere else and you feel like, well, I already said that. Say it again and say it the way that question needs to be answered. Know the technical requirements of whatever you're applying for. When does it have to begin? How long after? For a lot of these, you can't start the project till you get the grant. Make sure that you have the flexibility to wait for the grant before you get started. Otherwise, you won't be able to use the funding and other sorts of things. Know the particular funding requirements. As Joe mentioned, different programs have different, some have no matching funding requirement, some have big matching funding requirements. So just don't be surprised by any of these things, because when you have to fill out that application, you're going to have to explain the entire budget of the project, including the matching fund. So you want to be prepared. The other thing is build support. So that includes talking to the wonderful borough president's office. They are involved in all the applications that are going in for Queens. They can be very helpful in pointing people in the right direction or course correcting. Don't hesitate to build support. Talk to other leaders in your neighborhood. Make sure, especially if you're a nonprofit or so on, but even if you have an individual project, don't hesitate to reach out to others, get their advice and guidance. The other thing, again, sorry, I was going to say the other thing is, while there are excellent materials and every year they've gotten better and the guidelines have gotten better, the regional office, Joe's office, is incredibly helpful. Again, they want successful applications to come in from New York. So if you can't figure it out, if you have a question, don't hesitate to call them. I know Joe's going to say that, that if everybody calls it, the whole system will break down. But the reality is sometimes there's a question you just can't answer for yourself. Better to get the answer than to submit an application that doesn't quite work. And the other thing is apply early, start the application early. You are going to see that there are character limits on some things. There's going to be documents you're going to have to hunt down. You're going to have to figure out your budget. Don't wait to start the application, because as you get walked through it, there's a lot of work that you're going to need to do. Leave yourself time to do it. So start early and end early. That 4 p.m. deadline is real, and everybody and their cousin is going to be trying to upload their documents and everything at the same time. You are going to have a problem no matter what, not necessarily because of the REDC system, because get it in the day before, get it in 2 days before, leave yourself time to deal with any problems. And I know this all sounds like application 101, but this is a very technical process. It is very well designed if you follow it, but it is not a casual process. So make sure that you are ready, that you have time to get questions answered, and that you don't wait. But the most important thing is apply, because even if you don't get it this year, you may get great feedback that can help you for next year, if it's a program project that can wait. And also because even if you may not see that you're getting enough funding to complete the project, I can tell you that the good housekeeping seal of approval of getting this grant leads to lots of other funding. This is really, really powerful seed funding, in addition to being helpful funding in and of itself. So I hope that was helpful, and good luck to everyone. And please, let's have Queens come out on top this year.
Thank you very much, Liz, for those invaluable tips. And the Queensborough President's Office cannot thank you enough also for hosting us, giving us a tour of Long Island City. And we were able to see the fruits of your labor and the fruits of the funding. So continued success to you, and thank you for joining and sharing your insider tips for success. We appreciate you. So in addition to Mr. Grech, who's also NYC REDC rep and an incredible partner of Queensborough Hall, we're so lucky to also have another rep from downtown Jamaica, Hope Knight, who's the president and CEO of the Greater Jamaica Development Corporation, a 2018 recipient. And I had the great pleasure of working with her years ago in the revitalization of downtown. And she was able to help secure funding from so many areas for the first time, to the borough, to the city. And we're gonna hear her tips now. Thank you so much for making the time to join us today, Hope.
Thank you, Deputy Borough President Benda. I want to thank the Borough President's Office, as well as the REDC, for hosting us, as well as our partners who are working together to try to get more resources to Queens. And so I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about the initiative that we applied for and was successful in securing funds through the process. and just give you a few key tips on some of the things that we were focused on in being successful with this application. So we'll go to a couple of slides that I have. Great. So as I said, I'm going to talk just a few minutes about a couple of key tips. So just to talk a little bit about the project. We proposed to convert 3 vacant or underutilized industrial buildings with the goal of anchoring a portion of the manufacturing industry in Jamaica, Queens. 2 of the buildings will be home to traditional manufacturers, and the third is going to be geared towards 21st century economy businesses and will feature separate workspaces for creative entrepreneurs. The entire project is about $22 million. We were awarded $1.5 million through the REDC for this project. Next slide. So, very simply, is my project eligible? The RDC is looking for projects that align with the region's strategic plan. And we had the amazing benefit of doing a lot of planning in Jamaica and Southeast Queens. Firstly, with the Borough President's Jamaica Now initiative and other planning work that we were involved in, understanding that expanding manufacturing and the industrial core was a key priority for the region. Also, when you're looking at your project and the focus, clearly workforce development was one. And as I mentioned, innovation, looking at how to support 21st century manufacturing was a key part of our proposal. Next slide. So beyond eligibility, you really want to make your application compelling. You want to be specific about how the project aligns with existing New York State programs. As Liz said a few minutes ago, you want to use the words that focus on how the project aligns. You want to detail the economic development metrics. You want to be very clear about the number of jobs you're going to save and or create. And you want to understand what other kinds of economic impact the project is going to provide in the context of indirect and direct economic activity to the region. And to the extent that you can use data to persuade the reader of your application, that is very significant. Next slide. And you want to make sure that you have committed capital in place. As was said, at least 80% of the project, and you want to make sure that that capital is pretty firm. You want to make sure that your project is utilizing partnerships and collaborations across your community and the region. For Greater Jamaica, it was very important to include existing partners like York College for our project to be an integral component of it. You also want to try to make sure that you're building on an existing organizational strength and not really venturing in something very new and untested, because that's very difficult to fund and execute. And you also want to make sure that the project is focused on smart growth. It's in a distressed community and could potentially be completed without the requested funding. You may ask for X, but you may get X minus Y. And you need to be able to explain that you could do the project with a reduced amount of funding from the REDC. Next slide. And finally, we didn't have to focus on this because this is pre-COVID, but you do want to understand how this fits into a post-COVID recovery. You know, we want to build back better, want to focus on inclusive growth, resilience, and there are many regions across our community that were greatly impacted by COVID. And so what does that look like from a reconfiguration perspective? And Joe made reference to in his presentation that there are a series of questions that focus on this. And I implore you to make sure that you look at those questions and you have good answers to how you're going to make this part of your post-COVID recovery. And with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hope and Greater Jamaica Development Corporation, for your partnership, especially most recently with the Small Business Recovery Grants from our partnership with the Metz Foundation and with New York City EDC. And so next we have new news about a state program that's quite similar. It's called the COVID-19 Pandemic Small Business Recovery Grant Program. And before I introduce, I would like to remind everyone that you can ask questions in the Q&A function. We have a number of questions building up, and we'll have our panelists. I see we've also been joined by Mitch Sternbach from Greater Jamaica Development Corporation, who's also another expert in the funding process. Without further ado, I'd love to introduce now Beverly Bobb, who's the Senior Director of Capital Access, Small Business and Technology Development at New York State Empire Development Corporation. Thank you, Beverly.
Thank you. Again, I just want to say a special thank you to the Borough President's Office for providing this platform for us to speak to the businesses in Queens. I also want to say a special thank you to Joe for inviting me to be a panelist on this virtual stage with these outstanding partners that are trying to see great work done in Queens. And I just have to say, I am a girl from Queens. I was born and raised in Queens. I live in Kew Gardens now. And just to see all these amazing businesses here trying to figure out how they can improve their and grow their business, do better, participate in the CFA, it just warms my heart. So with that, as Joe mentioned at the top of his presentation, there is another opportunity that's looming amongst ESD, and it's referred to as the New York State COVID-19 Small Business Recovery Grant Program. So this grant program, the program was created to provide flexible grant assistance to currently viable small businesses, micro businesses, and for-profit arts and cultural organizations who have experienced economic hardship due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So for the purposes of this program, I just want to provide a brief definition of what the eligible applicants mean. So for a small business, the small business must be incorporated in New York State and registered to do business in New York State and have 100 or less employees. For the micro business, it's 10 or less employees. And for the for-profit independent arts and cultural organizations, it's 100 or less full-time employees, and that excludes their seasonal employees. So just some additional information about the program in terms of what an eligible applicant must have. So the eligible applicant must currently be viable and have begun operation on or before March 1st, 2019, and continue to be in operation as of the date of the application. Eligible applicants will be required to show loss of gross receipts or other economic hardship as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic or compliance with COVID-19 health and safety protocols, which resulted in a business modification, interruption, or closure. So in terms of the documentation that the eligible applicant will provide, I'll just go over just a brief snapshot of what that looks like. So the eligible applicant must provide their 2019 or 2020 gross receipts of between $25,000 and $500,000. And on the flyer that's there, it guides you to where you would find that information on your tax return, depending on the type of business you have. Demonstrate positive net profit on your 2019 business return. That would be $1 or greater. demonstrate that their total expenses on their 2020 business income return are greater than the grant amount, demonstrate at least 25% loss in annual gross receipts in a year-to-year revenue comparison as of December 31st, 2020 to the same period in 2019. I just want to point out two additional things that are not on this flyer, but I think it's really important. An eligible applicant cannot owe any federal, state, or local taxes prior to July 15th, 2020, unless covered by an approved repayment plan or deferment plan or any other applicable agreement with federal, state, or local tax authorities. Eligible applicants may have received or been awarded the following federal assistance. So if you've received a PPP loan totaling $100,000 or less, you're eligible to receive funding under this program. If you received the EIDL grant of $10,000 or less, you're also eligible, and the supplemental target advance grant of $5,000 and also SBA shuttered venue. So let's talk about what the grant amounts would look like. So again, the grant awards will be calculated based on a business's annual gross receipts for 2019. So if a business had an annual gross receipts between $25,000 and $49,999, and you were eligible to receive funding under this program, the business will receive an award in the amount of $5,000. If the business has annual gross receipts between $50,000 and $99,909, the business can expect to receive an award in the amount of $10,000. Annual gross receipts between $100,000 and $500,000, there will be 10% of your annual gross receipts, and the maximum award amount under this program will be $50,000. So what can the funds be used for? The grant funds may be used for COVID-19 related expenses incurred between March 1st, 2020 and April 1st, 2021. And you just go down on the flyer, it lists it provides a list of what those costs will look like. It could be payroll costs, commercial rent, insurance, utility, the cost to purchase PPE to make sure that your workers and customers are healthy and safe as they return to your business, to upgrade your HVAC system. So yes, you don't need to pick all that apply, you can just pick one. So if this program if you're interested in finding out more about the program, on the flyer here, there's a website that's listed, and there's also a QR code that you can scan, and it'll take you straight to the website. That website is New York NYS smallbusinessrecovery.com. And I just have to say that when you go onto the website, it is extremely user-friendly. It is translated into 13 different languages, because yes, we know Queens is extremely diverse. So you go onto the platform, you can click, you'll find the 12 different languages. The entire platform will translate to the language of your choice, whether it be Spanish, Chinese, Polish, German. There's also tutorials that are there to walk you through the application. There are videos that are available, and there's also guides to instruct you through various stages of the application. And lastly, I would say that if you feel that you need some additional assistance, there is a hotline that we have. I'll provide the hotline number, which is 877-721-0097. And if you go onto the website, on the top toolbar, there is a section that I think it's titled Find a Partner. And if you click on that section, you click the county that you are in, and it will provide you a list of resource partners. That would be our small business development centers, our entrepreneurial assistance centers, our Chamber of Commerce, that are also that we rely on as our resource partners to provide assistance to the businesses. So yes, so definitely take advantage of this program. It is an $800 million program. It has been around since, I think, the beginning of June. I know folks have been applying as soon as it became available, and I don't want the businesses in Queens to miss out on this great opportunity. So thank you again for giving me this little bit of time to speak about this great program. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And so now we'll turn to our Q&A, and we have a chat for Q&A that you can enter your questions. We have a few questions that have already come in, and I'd like to answer those. There was a question about whether funding and grants are available for nonprofit organizations too. The answer is yes. We also have a question about whether the programs allow for collaboration and partnering with other interested organizations. Would anyone like to answer? Thank you, Jim.
Sure. I'll take that, I guess, first. It's certainly that's a possibility. We're looking for collaborations. So in general, and I mean, certainly as it relates to, you know, each program has its own criteria of who is eligible and who isn't, right? So in some cases, for-profit entities are eligible, but nonprofits aren't, or nonprofits are, but for-profits aren't. So it can vary. So yes, I would say be careful to look at eligibility criteria if you're looking at partnering.
Thank you. We have a question about whether funding includes work with healing and trauma.
Well, I mean, again, it depends on the program. If you're looking, like, for example, in a case like that, are you looking at acquiring a building or acquiring equipment for the business? I mean, that's something that the ESD Capital Grant Program can assist with specifically. I'm not sure any of the other programs would apply in that case.
Thank you, Joe. Also, a reminder that this is available on YouTube. There was a lot of information here, and so you can always go back and visit on Queensborough President's Office channel. There is another question about projects reviewed on a quarterly or rolling basis.
Yeah.
Do they have deadlines beyond July 30th?
Right. So, again, this is a new feature this year. The ESD Capital Grant Program is now being reviewed on a quarterly basis. So, yes, we received one batch that was at the end of June. We'll be getting another batch, of course, in July, and then going forward, excuse me, we will continue to look at these as long as funds remain for this year. So we have for all of the regions across the state, there's up to $20 million in ESD capital grant funds. So once that's exhausted, then we'll have to wait for the next budget cycle. So yes, we will continue to review on a quarterly basis until those funds are used. Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Is there a number that one can call to receive assistance, and are the slides also available by email?
Sure. So the number to call for this office, my office, is 212-519-0231. And also the email address is nys-nyc@esd.ny.gov. Now that information is actually on the Empire State Development website. If you go to the New York City region, that information, both the phone number and the email address are there.
Thank you. Is funding open for small grassroots organization working in the community towards ending and supporting survivors affected by gun violence?
Sure. Again, you know, just so you know, that most of the regional council funding is for capital projects, meaning brick and mortar equipment, that sort of thing. There are a few programs that are for working capital, such as the Incubator program, also the planning grant, and Market New York marketing. But for the most part, these are capital projects. So it's not so much the use, it's what are you going to do with the money, right? Are you going to acquire some equipment? Are you going to build out space? But in any event, you know, it's all tied to job creation and job retention. So yes, I mean, the answer is yes, but the question is, what is your project and does it fit into one of the funding programs?
Thank you. Now, can one organization apply for multiple programs? And if so, do you need to register in under 2 different names?
That is an excellent question. And the beauty of the consolidated funding application is that you can indeed apply for multiple programs in a single application, assuming it's for a single project. If it's multiple projects of different types, then you may need to register twice, but or you know, as many times as you need. But yes, generally speaking, the idea is that you should be able to use one application for multiple requests, you know, whether it's ESD, Department of State, etc.
Thank you, Joe. You may know that the Queensborough president launched a nonprofit opportunities initiative this year. And so there are lots of questions coming in about the nonprofit opportunities for this funding. Specifically, is there any more information about arts programming? And where can we find more information to forward to others?
Yes, that's an excellent question. So traditionally, the New York State Council on the Arts has had programs that are part of the consolidated funding application. This year, NYSCA, for New York Council on the Arts, or NYSCA for short, has its own program, set of programs. I think it's 4 programs, totaling, I think it's about $105 million. So this is not through the CFA. This is going directly to NYSCA. So my recommendation is that you visit the NYSCA website, and many of these programs I think are ongoing, or have already begun, like the Live Performances Grant Program. So please look at that as soon as you can. And I should mention that I believe under the Kovit program, if you're a for-profit arts organization, you are eligible for that program, for the $800 million that Beverly just described.
Excellent.
Right, you are. That is correct.
That's great. That's great to know. Thank you. Is there a specific point of contact that can help nonprofits in particular with the application?
Is this for the CFA or for, I guess this would be for the CFA. Sure. Yeah. So the number I gave, I give it again. It's 212-519-0231.
Thank you. Would it be appropriate for a nonprofit interested in purchasing property for a site to hold meetings for the community? Would this be an appropriate proposal?
Yes, I mean, I think so. The question is, like, how does it relate to the strategies of the regional council? And this was something that Hope Knight touched on. Again, the regional council has, over a 10-year period, developed a series of strategies and priorities, which are listed in a progress report, right? So we just submitted that last week. So yes, I mean, I would say, yes, that's fine. But again, you have to outline what are the economic development benefits as a result of this project, right? Like in any of these, in any application, we want to know, what are the impacts? How is this going to relate to creating jobs, retaining jobs, training people, transforming the economy after this difficult period?
Are funds and grants available for organizations that are already working alongside the Parks Department?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, you know, as Liz Luskin demonstrated, you know, she's received, I think it's 4 grants. So there's no problem with having, you know, coming back for assistance if you received assistance from state agencies.
Great. There's another question about whether an organization has trouble matching more narrowly a specific agency for funding. If that's the case, is the $150 million the only avenue for capital funding?
Well, again, it depends on the project, right? Or it depends on, you know, depends on what you're doing. But I generally suggest that organizations, to the extent they're able, cast a wide net with the CFA programs. So let me give you an example. Let's say there's a tourism project that needs capital dollars. It's some sort of destination. So in a case like that, you could apply for Market New York, which has capital grant funds. You could apply for the ESD capital grant program. So, I mean, that's an example, for example, where you're applying for multiple programs. So I hope that answers the question.
May I make a suggestion?
Thanks, Tom.
Some of those numbers that were given out are really, really helpful and great. The web links are terrific. I see them in both the chat and the Q&A. But if somebody on Joe's team could put in those phone numbers for contact, I think it'd be great and useful for folks in the Q&A to have those numbers.
Oh, sure. My pleasure, Tom. You mean in the chat, correct?
Yes, sir. Well, wherever, I think we've guided most people to go to the Q&A for both the questions as well as the answers, but whatever works, just as long as they get access to phone numbers.
Sure.
And again, as we wait for more questions, I think our viewers, we started off with well over 50 viewers and participants and attendees. I hope folks out there get the sense that this is our chance to shine, right? We are a unified group. We are a great borough. We're the largest geographic borough. And if you haven't been following the message here, it's our time to shine. And we've got a great friend in Joe at ESD and his team. And so I just think I want to personally reiterate, we've got how many days? 22 days. Let's make it 21 days with a day to spare to get our applications in. If anybody has any questions and has any challenges getting a hold of the right folks, and I'm sure you will not, but if you do, I know I can speak for Hope, Liz, and myself, and just get to us. You all know who we are in this community, and we'll help get the answers for you. We probably cannot fill out the applications ourselves for you. It probably would not be the right thing to do, but I'm sure along the way, the message is there's plenty of help out there, and Joe and his team are more than qualified and anxious to help us.
Thank you very much, Tom. We have a question now from someone with a professional organization, and they're wondering whether there's a place where they can find the RFQs and RFPs for the proposed work. Architectural and design firms.
Oh, I see. So you're talking about, I guess I'm trying to understand here. This would be for application. I mean, I know this is difficult because we're not speaking directly to the person who's posing the question, but the question is to the applications. Can they, how do they respond to those applications? I assume that's the question, right? Actually, it is difficult at the outset to see any applications. I mean, these applications are not made public generally, unless there is a FOIL request. However, at some point, the applications or the applicants will be posted on the website, and you can contact them at that point. But seeing the actual applications is not possible at this stage of the process. Hopefully that answers the question.
That's fair. Thank you, Joe. We have another question on the timing. If the July deadline holds, when is the expected start of the project?
Sure. So there are really two timelines now, right? First, there was the open enrollment for the ESD capital grant. The idea is that we are going to get announcements out sooner. But traditionally, for the traditional CFA, what we call the normal CFA period, it's late fall. So again, the July 30th deadline, there's traditionally a big program in Albany where the competition winner, the regional councils all come together and the awards are announced on that day. And that's generally late fall, you know, either late November or early December.
Thank you, Joe. Are grants available for faith-based organizations as well?
Yes, they are. But then the question is, and we've come up against this in some cases, is it for a religious purpose, right? Or a use, in which case it may violate the Constitution. If it's for an economic development project of some sort, that is fine. But if it relates to something that might be considered religious, then we may have to work or, you know, do some things. But that's a good question, but it's not easy to know exactly without knowing what the program is, or project rather.
Thank you, Joe. And we have posted the information, your contact information for ESD and the Small Business Recovery Grant Program. And you can always, again, go to our YouTube channel and hear the specifics one more time. I think we've received a lot of incredible advice from those experts who have won the grants to think big, be strategic about what the regional plans are and how you can fit into that. And of course, start as early as possible. Friendly reminder, of course, that we are here, Sharon Anderson, John Perricone, myself, the resources at Queens Borough President's Office know that Borough President Richards wants to support and see your projects come to fruition here in the borough. And so please feel free to reach out to us as well. And we are still taking questions in the chat. And so we'll leave it open for a couple more moments, but before we wrap up, I'd like to open the floor to our panelists and see if they have any additional last tips for your applications.
My only comment would be to, this is a great opportunity, as we don't want to continue to stress, but it's a great opportunity. And I think Liz and Hope would say the same thing, to dream big. Have your act together, have your docs ready. You know, sometimes it's those last minute looks for, you know, whether it's your articles of incorporation, your legal documents, your tax returns, whatever may have to be requested. Just start that process of looking and finding those now, but at the same time on the micro level. But on a macro level, I would urge everybody on this call and others that hear about this to dream big. Now is the time to dream big, because heaven knows that our county could use the impact of some of these projects, and this is a great time to do it. You've got a very, very supercharged group of folks representing Queens on the REDC that want to help get things done. And I thank you for your time and attention to this program today. And thank you, Joe, and Borough President Richards and Deputy Borough President Binda.
Thank you, Queens Chamber. Mitch?
Sure. Thank you, Borough President's Office and to Empire State Development. I would just reiterate what Tom said and what Liz had said earlier. Having really done the lion's share of work in the application in 2018, there's so much information that you need to get and collate. It can't be done on July 30th. It can't be done July 29th. And in addition to that, it can't be done by one person. So one person might have some of the information, but you have to get budget information from someone else. You have to get legal information from someone else, and you need to get your letters of support, 10 days before that. So, if you are doing it yourself, you have to make sure that you have enough time. If you can delegate some of this, it's great because it calls for different programmatic functions. But I also echo what Tom said. This is a grant that aims to give out funding. So if you line up all your ducks in a row, you can make a compelling application. And the state is aware that Queens has had less support than other boroughs, and it's because we've had less applications than other boroughs. You get those applications up, and I think that it's gonna even out. So this is definitely, let's strike while the iron is hot.
Thank you, Mitch. Ms. Luskin?
Yeah, I would echo all that and also say, it takes a borough. There are many ways to apply. There are many different kinds of funds to apply for under many different programs. So as you're looking through things, if you see things that you think of other organizations that maybe it would be a good program for them to apply to some other program, let them know. If you know businesses that might be doing major capital projects and are not as tuned into these kinds of processes, please let them know. Nonprofits, you have board members, make sure that they're aware. Really, we all need to spread the word, those of us who know about this program, because there are a lot of people who never even consider applying for it because they're just not in that slipstream of looking at government programs. They may be more focused on private lending and so on. So please, please, please spread the word. The big ticket items are often projects that are being done by private companies. And they may be multi-million dollar programs, or like, Hope and Greater Jamaica and Mitch were in a position to do a $20 million project, which is great. But please spread the word. The other thing is, let's support each other. Every year that we've applied, others have applied for other programs. Get your letters of support into them quickly as they need, and they'll get to you. This is really has to be a community effort to up our numbers, to up their type of applications, and get them in on time.
Thank you, Liz. And to follow on, I'll dare to say that one lesson that was learned throughout the pandemic was that the partnerships that we need between government and nonprofits and government and the private sector, they were strengthened, and they're so vital and important. So we appreciate what you all are doing to get the word out about this incredible opportunity for us here. We actually have one last question for you, Joe. Will a presentation be required of applicants before notice of approval?
At this point, I don't think so. We have in the past had a public forum where project applicants were invited in, but I think it's difficult with the virtual meetings and our new timeline, and we're fast approaching July 30th. If I may, I just wanted to sort of echo something that Liz had mentioned earlier, which is about the keywords and the strategies. And I agree totally with Tom about dreaming big, but try as best you can to, address those strategies, both that the regional councils have put forward and that the state has flagged as priorities. So there are a number of different things that, so it's both locally and statewide. So all those things, just as you're doing your application, and I just think you'll have a better application if you're directly addressing what the state is requesting. Thank you very much, Deputy Borough President.
Well, thank you to ESD. Thank you so much, Joe, and your team. We hope that we'll see more applications over the next 20 days. We appreciate the panelists for joining us today and sharing your expertise. On behalf of Borough President Donovan Richards, I also want to thank our incredible staff. Thank you to Sharon Anderson and John Perricone, and to Dot, to Tiffany Eason, Carolina Gill, Aldo Grillo, Chris Barca. And we want to thank you all for us, coming together, sharing the best practices. And if you have any questions, please always feel free to reach out to our office. We would be happy to work with you as you walk through and complete your applications. I'd also like to mention again that out of this pandemic, we did forge so many new partnerships with nonprofit organizations. And Susie Tenenbaum, who's our Director of Nonprofit Opportunities, also in partnership with Queen's Chamber, we've been able to start an incredible program where we share more information like this. You can get onto her mailing list. If you look to our website, there is a form that nonprofits should fill out, and then you become part of the Queensborough Hall Nonprofit Opportunities Network. So once again, on behalf of Borough President Donovan Richards Jr., thank you, be safe. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.